All right, guys, it's time for tip number 18. Now, we had the opportunity a couple days ago to talk about air quality and how that could be a source of toxins within your body. So we want to make sure that we get an air purifier. We want to make sure that we're not using toxic things inside our house. And we want to make sure that we're drinking healthy water, right? That not something that's contaminated with different toxins. We want to test our water and we want to filter it out. Now, another source of toxins in our house, in our workplace, in our schools is going to be our cleaning products. So we want to make sure that we're using safe cleaning products. One of my fears, and I know it's one of Dr. Heather's fears as well, as we go back to school, we're fearful that we're going to over-sanitize everything to the point where these kids are never being exposed to anything, right? Most likely they're going to have to wear masks, and they're going to require the janitorial staff to over-sanitize everything, and most likely they're going to make these kids wash their hands excessively and use mass amounts of hand sanitizer. Here's the problem with that. If we do not let these kids come in contact with the normal viruses, bacterias, and funguses, other pathogens that normally they would come in contact with, we're going to actually be doing their immune system a disservice. So we've talked about the innate immune response, right? The first line of defense, our cell-mediated response, but then we also have an adaptive immune response. And what that means is we've come in contact with something, we've overcome it, and now we have the antibodies to overcome it again or ward it off if we see it in the future. And if we aren't constantly prepping and priming this immune system, then later on down the road, there's going to be some serious consequences, and there's going to be things that these kids cannot handle because we're not requiring their immune system to essentially do their workout or their push-ups. So that's my little soapbox on over-sanitation. Here's the thing. We realize that it's going to happen. So my other concern is let's make sure that we're using safe cleaners, okay? Many of these industrial cleaners that people are using have some serious toxic chemicals in them. And over time, that toxic load can show up as hormonal issues, infertility issues, and could potentially lead to things like cancer. So I want to talk about that and give you a few tips as far as cleaners. Let's make sure that we're not using toxic cleaners. Now, a few guidelines here. First and foremost, don't mix cleaners that have ammonia and bleach in them. Now, that should be, everybody should know that. It can form a gas called chloramine gas, and that is extremely toxic and can be even deadly. So in our house, I don't even have bleach in my house. I don't want bleach in my house. It's extremely toxic compound. Any heavy-duty degreaser that you use, let's say for like your oven, you don't want to use products that have hydrochloric acid, phosphoric acid, sodium or potassium hydroxide, or ethanol amines. Now, the reason being is if we inhale some of these compounds, they can cause lung damage. If we get them in our eyes, they can actually cause blindness. And if we get them on our skin, they can actually burn our skin. One of the most toxic things that we see in cleaners is the fragrances that they put in there. So we recommend that everybody avoid air fresheners and laundry detergents or cleaners with heavy fragrances, especially if they don't disclose the ingredients of those fragrances and they just say fragrance blend or natural fragrances or something like that. We want to know exactly what those fragrances are, and we also want to avoid any quaternary ammonium compounds, or what they call quats. Now, these can cause conditions like asthma, fertility. In animals, they've even seen that they can cause birth defects. So we want to stay away from those compounds. One of the biggies is triclosan. Now, in the past couple of years, they've stripped it from a lot of products, but always read your labels and make sure there is no triclosan in any of your old hand sanitizers, soaps. They used to put this stuff in toothpaste, and we know that it can have it can cause reactions like allergies. We know that it can be a thyroid disruptor, a hormone disruptor, and cause thyroid dysfunction. And we know that it could be a potential contributor to the superbugs or the antibiotic resistant bacteria that we actually see out there. Now, antibiotic resistance is something that we have literally created as a society, and it's because all the antibiotics and antimicrobial agents that we actually use. These bugs actually adapt to them and become resistant to them to where our lines of defense, our cleaners, our antibiotics no longer work. So straight from the CDC, they say that antibiotic resistance is literally one of the biggest public health challenges of our time. So every single year, they say that 2.8 million people get some type of antibiotic resistant infection, meaning that we cannot treat it with antibiotics. We don't have an effective treatment for it. And more than 35,000 people die every single year from these antibiotic resistant bacteria. So we got to be conscious of that. If you see triclosan or anything, please do not use it, especially if it's in something like an old toothpaste or something of that nature. Definitely don't want to be ingesting it. Now, when you are cleaning, please, even if you're using natural stuff, I still recommend that you ventilate your cleaning areas. Use mild cleaners. Soap and water is fine for so many things. There's different vinegar solutions that you can use. Anywhere to a super diluted solution to something that has more vinegar in it, depending on what your goal is and what you're actually trying to clean. Thieves oil, right, could be a great cleaner. There are so many natural cleaners that we could be using that are extremely effective against killing the pathogens that we want to kill, but are also safe and aren't going to cause toxicity or dysfunction within the body. There's brands like 7th Generation, Method Homes, Myers, Ecos. If you go on Thrive Market, you can find a whole bunch of natural cleaners. So I encourage you, do your investigating. Those list of ingredients that we said, look out for those, avoid those, try and find the most natural products that you can. Now, I think that our goal as we go back to school, I think our goal needs to be, if they're going to over-sanitize everything, okay, let's make sure that we have a cleaner that can kill COVID-19 and is approved as a cleaner, but let's also make sure it's a safe cleaner for these kids. If we're going to be bombarding their environment with these chemicals, let's make sure that we're using something that is not going to be toxic. Let's make sure that it's something safe, and let's make sure there's not chemicals. So hopefully you found this helpful, guys. Let's make sure that we change the way that we're cleaning. Let's make sure we're cleaning in a way that's truly healthy, and that does not include harsh chemicals that are going to carry a toxic burden on the body. We will talk to you guys tomorrow for tip number 19, and spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about some of the beauty products that we use and the toxic load that it can have. Have a great day.